It's Ed Vaizey on Times Radio. It's 8:39. I'm here broadcasting live from the Glyndebourne Festival. But a shadow has been cast on the festival with the news that Boris Johnson has quit Parliament with an extraordinary letter attacking the Privileges Committee, who he has revealed in this letter have made it clear that they found him guilty of misleading Parliament, or it's not clear what punishment they were planning to visit on him. I'm joined now by Matt Chorley, obviously the very well-known Times Radio presenter who presents his daily politics show every morning on Times Radio. Matt, welcome to the show.
Well, this is exciting, isn't it, Ed?
Isn't it amazing? I mean, we're here watching an opera about a charismatic reprobate who gets his just desserts, but other things are happening in Westminster. I mean, I've read the letter; it's pretty extraordinary, and it is a bit like an episode of Succession. It leaves quite a lot hanging.
Yes, it does. I mean, it's about 1,000 words long, so we won't read the whole thing out. Which is probably longer than all of his contributions to the House of Commons since he stepped down as Prime Minister. He says this is terrific. How dramatic, having opera in the background while discussing Boris Johnson's downfall. Doesn't get better than this. Yes, he basically, in a slightly circular Boris Johnson-esque way, says that there's not a shred of evidence that he lied to the House of Commons, and that's why he's not going to fight it and stand down. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, particularly. But he's taking down everyone with him. It's Sue Gray's fault. It's the Labour Party's fault. It's the Liberal Democrats' fault. It's the SNP's fault. It's Tory MP's fault. It's a witch hunt. It's revenge for Brexit. It's a plan to reverse the Brexit referendum. It's the fault of the.
But I mean, I think what is interesting about this is that you've got Peter Cruddas, the Tory donor who joined the House of Lords in Boris Johnson's one of his list of peerages. It may have been the one I got a peerage in, who is sort of campaigning to say that Boris was unfairly ousted. And then you've got this I will be back final paragraph. Do you think he's going to go off and start a new party, do you think? Because it's all about
sounds like a lot like hard work for him, doesn't it?
It's all about the reversal of Brexit. He's not saying it's I've been hard done by, so I'm flaunting off. He's saying this is a conspiracy to get me out to stop Brexit.
So I think there are a few things we need to unpack here. Boris Johnson was facing the prospect of a pretty humiliating vote in the House of Commons, clearly to suspend him for more than 10 days, which is what would trigger this process. That if he was recommended for a suspension more than 10 days, there would have to be a vote in the House of Commons, and he would then have to watch not just opposition MPs, but Tory MPs who he once led, probably being told to vote to remove him from the House of Commons. That would then trigger a petition, which would trigger a by-election in which he had to go to his constituents to secure their backing, with all the polls, or at least all the assumption being. There was a poll this week that suggested he'd win that, but that seemed a little bit shonky. So he faced the prospect of being dragged out of the Commons in a slightly humiliating way. With this, he can go down in a blaze of glory and will forever be the martyr. I think the idea that he's going to go off and do something as complicated as launching a new party, particularly having seen, Nigel Farage had, 6-7 goes at being an MP as the leader of a small party, and that turned out not to be a lot of fun.
But do you think that Boris has a case here? I mean, he is making the point that he when he spoke to the Commons, he'd been briefed by his officials that Harriet Harman has been very vocal in her views on what she thinks in terms of what Boris did wrong. He does have a case in saying that a lot of this was prejudged.
Well, I think what we don't know, obviously, is the details of what it is the committee has found fault with. I think Boris Johnson's defence has been that he was told when to go in the Commons that he could say there were no parties. The question is, did he see things with his own eyes that contradicted the lines to take given to him by his officials, who told him that he was able to say that he had been assured? Because what he actually kept saying was, I have been assured there were no parties. So it's possible that people did assure him there were no parties, while he, with his own eyes, might have seen something that was different. I mean, the problem is, I suppose, that much like so many things in politics these days, the outcome of this report would not have changed anybody's minds. People who thought Boris Johnson was a great man and hadn't done anything wrong and had been unfairly treated in the whole thing will always think that. And people who thought he was a liar and a cheat and a scoundrel we're going to conclude the same thing. I think the fact that it was obviously this report, the details of the report are sufficiently bad for him to think that he was unable to fight it, either before it was published on the detail of it, or to make his case to the House of Commons and try and persuade his colleagues to let him stay there. And I think it's probably a sign that he's been quite an isolated character, actually, in the Commons since he stepped down as Prime Minister. And he just can't marshal those numbers anymore. And, Rishi Sunak, I think, probably rubbing his hands with glee tonight.
Right, Matt Chorley, on that note, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your analysis. We'll be joined by Tim Montgomery after the 9 o'clock news. He's the editor of Conservative Home,